All right, everyone, we're here with General Manager Joe Cronin. Again, if you have questions, let me know, name and affiliation, but we'll start here with Joe. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Off to another season here. This is one, sometimes off seasons come quickly. This one, we couldn't wait for it to come. Like 20 and 29 other teams are saying this today that they're excited about their teams, but we're legitimately excited about getting started. And we wish we had a game tonight. Like we're ready to go. Happy about the things we've been able to accomplish in 2022, not just as an organization, but also with our roster. I feel like we have a very talented, competitive, athletic, skilled group that is going to compete every night and be really fun to watch on a nightly basis. Here for really more so for any questions you all have. Happy to talk about our team and how our offseason went and whatever else you have.
Aaron Fentress, the Oregonian. You mentioned you couldn't wait for this season to get here, obviously because of all the madness that went on last year. How are you feeling about this team's ability to, A, win back some of the fans who might have been turned off, and B, just set this franchise back on the course of at least being competitive and winning as it has been for so long?
Mm-hmm. We're very confident that we're going to be a very entertaining and watchable product and a very competitive group that we're hoping that makes a lot of noise, not this year, but for the many years to come. So I think, we understand that we're constantly, continually trying to get better, but the foundation that we have right now, we're really encouraged by and really excited to see them get out there and play.
Danny Marrington, Native fan. Joe, there's been a lot of press releases recently about surgeries and injuries. How healthy are guys going into training camp, and then are there any limitations to guys in training camp and preseason?
Mm-hmm. We have a few minor soft tissue things going on that won't or shouldn't affect guys a whole lot in training camp starting tomorrow. The only guy that won't be a full go or almost a full go right away is Gary Payton II. We're expecting him to be ready closer to the start of the season. But other than that, the guys are doing well.
Jason Quick, The Athletic. How did that four-game stretch before the All-Star break influence how you handled the rest of the season, and what about that stretch kind of stood out to you?
The spirit of that group stood out, where it was, a bunch of young guys, but we also had Anthony, Josh, Justice, and Nurk. And so we were undermanned, but there was a legitimate spirit and effort and severe team approach to that group where they shared the ball, they really guarded, they really cared about each other's progress and success, and played Chauncey's style of ball where it was basically it wasn't about outscoring them, it was about getting stops. So we go on the road and win at Milwaukee, at Memphis on consecutive nights, and we know it's a small sample size, but knowing that grit when we put the right talent on the roster, we think that's going to go a long way. It did, yeah. I mean, not only in retention where we saw the success that Anthony, Josh, Justice, Nurk had, but also, okay, how do we add to that? So to go out and get Jeremy Grant, to add Gary Payton II, to bring back Drew Eubanks, to add two really talented rookies that all play the way Chauncey wants to play. So that was important to us and a really consistent theme.
Sean Heiken, Rose Garden Report. Joe, you have talked this summer about how you are still looking to get better, and you don't think this roster is perfectly balanced. How close? I'd maybe put a percentage on it or something. How close would you say the roster is right now to where you want it to be?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I like our talent. I like our mentality. I like the potential that our young guys have. We have a handful of young guys that I'm really high on and think can help us sooner rather than later. But with that, we have a group that essentially hasn't played with Damian. I mean, besides Nurkic and Anthony and Nasir a little bit, but they're completely different players now. These guys haven't played with Damian. So for us, it's going to be a lot of just getting to know this group and seeing what they're capable of. And early on, we're going to focus more on their connectivity and how together they are, more so than, whether we're winning games on a nightly basis. We're going to give these guys time to acclimate to Chauncey's system and to acclimate to each other. So, we know that in order to compete at the highest level in this league, you have to be ridiculously talented and super connected. And at this point, I don't think we're either, but I think we have the potential to be so. It'll probably involve making additions soon and definitely in the future, but I don't feel a huge sense of urgency to not give these guys a chance. I want to see these guys play it out.
Mike Richmond, Lockdown Blazers. Joe, Nas is extension eligible before the season starts. Have you had those conversations with his folks about what that might look like?
We've just had brief conversations. Out of respect, I called on June 30th, the first day, we were able to start talking about it, and just expressed, how much or how highly we think of Nasir, and that, we hope that he's a long-term part of this team. And the feeling was mutual, and we've had a few talks since, but we haven't really gotten into it. Other than we know that we really value him and that he really likes it here and wants to stay. So we haven't gotten deep into numbers. Part of it is, it's let's see how training camp goes and let's get back healthy and those kind of things. And, some of it is in rookie scale early extensions. Those are hard to, agree on sometimes. You're a year out and there's a lot of unknowns in the young players, but we're definitely open-minded to doing something if it makes sense, and I think he is too, but I don't think it consumes either side.
Same deal with Jeremy. Obviously, there's not the deadline, but have you had conversations about extending him?
Jeremy's is a little more complicated because rule-wise you got to wait 6 months before you can extend those extension parameters to give more years and stuff like that. So we haven't gotten into it much, but I'm very open to talking once the calendar allows us to.
Before I pass this to Danny, speaking of Nasir, since we're here, how do you see small forward playing out between him and Peyton and Hart?
We are going to do an open competition, and that's going to be a theme with us. Throughout the roster and throughout our everyday basketball experience here, it's come in and get it, come in and compete, earn those minutes. So I think Chauncey's perspective is there's a lot of capable guys that could start there, and that's what this training camp is going to be for, in part, is come in, compete, and whoever wins that spot or whoever's the best fit in that spot, you get into that a little bit as well. But between Josh, Justice, Nasir, Gary Payton, we have a lot of versatility, and that was the point to where, however those lineups are compiled, there's going to be a lot of different variations of them.
Speaking of the young guys, you said that you have a lot of faith in them. Is there a plan to try to roll them out in preseason, in camp, trying to give them that exposure, that opportunity to have that chance to get out on the floor?
The goal is always to get those guys as many repetitions as possible, especially, someone like Shaden, who has had very few. At the same time, we also want to get our starters and our rotation those reps together, being that they're such a new group. So we're going to have to find that balance. And a good part of all of this is this group has put in more effort than I've seen in the off season than any other team that I've been with. We had roughly 10 guys a day in our gym in August. We had the whole team here most of September, to where they're starting to get those repetitions in. They're starting to get, used to playing together and learning each other's, pros and cons and those kind of things. So I feel like we've laid a pretty good foundation already, but we've got to consistently fine tune that. The level of connectivity that we're hoping to get isn't going to happen overnight. And we're just going to have to find that balance of developing / getting this team ready to roll.
Hey, Joe. Austin White from the Portland Tribune. A lot's been made this offseason of kind of the lack of size currently on the roster, right? But, the team that's kind of had the most success the past 7 years is Warriors Club that, has kind of thrived on this small ball. So I'm curious, does the Warriors, roster, that team, that kind of makeup, is that something that you think can be emulated at a championship level? And If so, is that, has that influenced anything at all with you building this roster?
Yeah, we realize we're a little small, and in a perfect world, we would like to be bigger. But at the same time, we did prioritize versatility and guys that can play multiple positions, guys that can guard up and down, guys that play bigger than their size. So I would say we leaned more towards the talent than the position, and I think you'll see that consistently from us. For me, it's more about getting the best player available, more so than plugging a specific hole. But with that, we recognize there are some limitations there, and we're just going to have to, really ask guys to step up in certain spots.
Joe, what was the thinking behind having training camp in Santa Barbara?
This was Chauncey's idea. It's something, you'll keep hearing it from us, the connectivity. Like, this was, the whole purpose of this is to get together in a place outside of here, take away all the distractions, and just bond as a group. We have a lot of new players, we have a bunch of new staff members, and this is a way for us to just get away and, get closer. It's a lot easier to interact on the road than it is in Portland, especially with the players where, they have their own lives and they're in the gym to work and then they go home. On the road, there's a little more time to hang out and get dinner, and, you don't have the family or life pressures for those, for that week. So that's strictly the goal. Chauncey wants us to connect and bond, and I fully agree and support that.
Bill Orm with the Oregonian. What kind of runway does Dame's extension give you to build that roster over time that you're talking about? I mean, obviously you've got him long term, but he's in his 30s. How do you kind of view the runway that you guys have to get to where you're trying to go?
I think it gives us a little bit of a buffer to take a team like this into the season and see what we have. If Dame's only got a year left or 2 years left, that sense of urgency gets spiked a little bit. This gives us a little more time to seek out the perfect fits rather than just trying to push all our chips in on, one big swing. So I like that it allows us to be more calculated, and just theme-wise, it shows on both ends the commitment we have to each other, where Damian, of course, wants to win. We, of course, want to win. But now we don't have to get super duper urgent about it, even though naturally we will be. But it just gives us a confidence in each other that, hey, we're going to figure this out the right way.
I got a two-parter then. One, is there a plan in place maybe to reduce Dame's load to maybe go from 38 minutes to whatever? And two, how realistic is it for Shaedon Sharpe to crack this lineup with the depth at the 2 and the 3?
Yeah. With Damian's load, I mean, we haven't dove deeply into it yet, but we're definitely going to be conscious of it and would love to find ways to get him some natural breaks, whether it's, on a per game basis or, during certain stretches of the season when we're seeing his load get too high. So we want to be very aware of it with him and the rest of the roster. If we're pushing guys too hard, we need to be careful and be conscious of that. As far as Shaedon goes, Chauncey's not going to hear it from me. I fully trust him and have fully empowered him to make decision whatever he thinks is best. Like Chauncey, I know that he isn't going to hold it against a player if he's a rookie or if he's a young guy that's not ready. If Chauncey believes in him and thinks he can help us, he's going to play. For Shaedon, he's got a little ways to go as far as he has to learn, this game. He's missed a lot of repetitions along the way, not just because he's only 19, but also just in his path. So for us, it's, we think he'll catch up quickly as far as, he's a really sharp kid that has a great feel, that picks things up, and he's physically capable. But at the same time, this NBA game is tough, and there's a lot of little boxes and intricacies you got to check along the way. So the quicker he picks those up, his talent is going to shine, and then that'll be his time. But as far as deciding when that is, that's more so up to him and up to us, in guiding him in that direction.
Joe, I was wondering if you could go into maybe some of the staffing changes that you've made on the coaching staff, specifically what went into the departure of Anisha Curry.
When staffing changes come up, I'll usually not get very deep into any of those. As far as Coach Curry goes, she had a great year with us, and we're really thankful for the contribution she made. She was good with the player development stuff, all the way even through this year's summer league. And we just want to thank her for the time she spent here. It was good.
It's Orlando Sanchez, KGW TV. A lot of changes over the past year or so. To really leave your mark and put your stamp on what you're doing here in your position, what have you learned about yourself during this process that will also help you in the future with decisions along the way?
I've learned so much. You juggle so many different things and you work in so many different areas. But the thing that I continually fall back on and keep learning more and more about is how to effectively communicate. I probably say it to our staff or our team 5 times a day. We don't communicate well enough. We've got to do this better. And I think I've learned the importance of that probably more so than anything, of how critical really effective communication is.
Joe. I gotta cut it. Joe, thank you.